Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope everyone is having a great day, great week so far. And thank you for joining me here today. My name is Marisol. I'm a health coach and a nutritional strategist. And I like to come on here live with you guys on Instagram on Wednesdays. Today, I'm actually coming on quite a bit earlier than I normally do, just worked out with my schedule. And hopefully, I can get some viewers that normally aren't able to join me in the evening. So, for everybody who is here, I just want to say welcome. And if this is your first time joining me live, what I like to do is I come on here and every week I like to touch on a certain topic that I've hinted, and a lot of these topics are based off of things that I get frequently asked about, things that I'm constantly working on myself, things that I've learned over my own wellness journey, as well as the things that I currently help coach my clients on. And the way that I coach is I try to incorporate a holistic approach to wellness, which really just means that I don't just look at one certain thing. I try to get to the root of all of our struggles by incorporating different aspects of our lifestyle. So we take a look at fitness and movement, we take a look at nutrition and eating, cooking, recipes, and then finally, what I talked about last week, I believe, was self-care, or in other words, recovery. How are you recovering and regenerating your body? So the idea is that when we balance those three pillars of our life, we are living much more vibrantly with much more vitality naturally, and we can really do and accomplish all that we desire. So today, what our topic is going to be on is, if you saw my post yesterday, then you already know. It's about sugar, people, and more specifically, artificial sugars. So for all those out there, if you are or used to be diet soda addict, maybe you just love your sugar-free pumps of whatever at, Starbucks, your local coffee place, or you're just, you walk around with packets of artificial sugars like I did, you're in good company, because as far as it seems like I am from that place today, that used to be me. I used to be the fake sugar queen. I mentioned in my post, I used to put packets of Truvia like in my purse, in my backpack, because I was that afraid and honestly that addicted to sugar that when I would go to a restaurant or when I would be on my own or I would get something to drink, I had this addiction that I brought on to myself with artificial sweeteners. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about these three topics. First of all, why artificial sweeteners are not actually freebies. I think the industry, the food industry, has taught us to think of it as that way, as it's just like a freebie. You can just go ahead and have as much as you want of these fake sugars, and you're going to be just fine. That's such a myth, and that is very misleading. So I want to make sure that we definitely go through that and demystify that. Next, we're going to talk about the long-term effects of using fake or artificial sweeteners. So right now, when you're using a little bit, it seems fine, right? But what is the long-term effect of that on your health and your progress towards your fitness and your overall vitality goals? And then finally, how do we sweeten with a little bit more savvy? So I'm not going to leave you here just telling you, what you should not be using, but I want to give you the tools and the strategies so that you have the knowledge to then go about your life, choose the best and smarter type of sweeteners, so that way you can still enjoy all of the wonderful things and foods that you love, just with a little bit more intention and looking out for yourself. So let's get into it. Let's first talk about our first topic here. Why aren't artificial sweeteners freebies? I mean, if you guys have any ideas, comment below. Why would you imagine that, artificial sweeteners are not always going to just be like a freebie, right? It's not a do what you want with it, go crazy with it. To start off, let's first go over what are artificial sweeteners. So essentially, if something is not derived naturally from like sugar cane, or it's not sugar on its own, the food industry has come up with different types of products to help us find replacements for that. So we have things like sucralose, also known as Splenda. We have aspartame, which is usually just goes by that name. Different things like sweeten low, equal. Those are all different types of artificial sweeteners that have come into the market, and they've been around for a while now. And essentially, the reason why that they were created is because the food industry had noted that people were starting to care about their health. They started to see rising rates of obesity, rising rates of other types of metabolic disease, and people were linking it to an increase in overall unhealthy sugars. And they were right. People were drinking a lot of Coke and a lot of processed foods, which tend to be higher in sugars, as we've known, or as we know now. And so they thought, okay, well, if that's going to prevent people from eating the good food that we are, not the good food, eating the food that we produce, then we need to come up with a solution where they feel like they can still eat it, but we're going to save them the calories, right? So that's why the industry has come up with that. They wanted to solve that gap in the market. And unfortunately, the way that they market it to us, all we see on the other end is zero, right? And I've talked about this a lot, but it's like when I used to be in that place where I was seriously nutrient deficient, eating as little as possible to get by. I needed to look for other areas to fill myself up, right? And so what that would often mean is I would have to like crank up the flavor, and oftentimes that came in the form of like sugary sensations for me to feel like I was eating something worth it, and that would make me like calm down my cravings. And so when I would see like, oh, I could have all of this sugar and I could just like dump this into my oatmeal or dump this into my protein pancake or into my iced tea, and it's zero. I just like, I don't need to worry about it. There's no added burden on my caloric intake, and I'm not going to be putting my fitness goals and my total weight at risk by having this sugar. Great, I'm 100% going to go for it, right? And that's how I know a lot of us out there are thinking. And so today what I want to help you realize is that there is actually far more danger to having artificial sweeteners than there are things to gain. So although we feel like it's going to help us, save us a bunch of sugar, real sugar, which there is also something to be said for eliminating overall sugar in your diet as well, and we'll get to that. But definitely you want to be careful how you go about this, and it's really just becomes a mindset shift, right? A lot of what you hear me talk about here is choosing overall more whole foods based products and foods in your diet. So all that means is that the less touched by humans your food is, the better it is for you, the more it's naturally going to fall in line with the goals that you want to accomplish. And so instead of trying to look for all of these shortcuts and freebies with like these packaged foods, do the work and commit yourself to the work, and your body will thank you and your body will cooperate with you so much more easier, rather than fighting it and trying to like find these shortcut ways. And I'm speaking from my personal experience because I did it for so many years that it seriously damaged my metabolism, my hormones, and my overall relationship with food. I don't want that for you. So just listen up and we will dig into this. So specifically why these sweeteners are not freebies, right, is because of the long-term effects that they give us. And it's something really worth noting here, especially in this time. We are very concerned with our health, right? And we're learning to not take it for granted. A couple of the ways that artificial sweeteners can be extremely detrimental is, first and foremost, as I mentioned in my post, they're just going to completely distort what you consider sweet anymore. Most of these sweeteners, the worst ones being sucralose and aspartame. First of all, they're the worst because they are 100% chemically produced. We're going to get to some other healthier alternatives that's not the case with them. But specifically with your Splendas, your sucralose, your aspartame, these are so chemically processed. It's like eating poison in a sense. It's toxifying your body, and you don't want any of that in excess. So when you start to have these different types of sweeteners, they're about 100, they could be anywhere from 200 to 600 times as sweet as normal table sugar, right? The stuff that you would find in a typical, off of sugar cane. So because of that, when you constantly are only eating that type of artificial sugar over and over again, what ends up happening is that you no longer understand what natural sweetness is anymore. Like, for example, you would eat fruit, right? Natural sweetness from the earth was not touched by man, and it's not going to taste, number one, satisfying for you, and it's not going to taste very sweet because you're used to like, ooh, super sweet from the artificial sweeteners. And so that's a problem because it's like a drug, guys. It's like if you were to take any other crazy drug out there that's addictive, the more you have of it, the more you then depend on it and need it, and you need it at higher and higher and higher levels. So very, very important that you take note of that. And then it's also important to realize, like, where do you find these types of products in your diet, right? We have diet soda. We have even like things that are noted sugar-free, low sugar. A lot of those will tend to use artificial sweeteners to then give you that same flavor without you having to worry about the extra calories or the extra sugar, right? So just be mindful of anything packaged that you're having, artificial sweeteners. That's going to be definitely more in the packaged food section. Aside from it distorting your sweetness, it's also going to throw off your appetite, because when you tend to have these different types of highly processed products within your diet, you're not going to be able to assess how hungry you are and how full you are anymore, because it's not real food, right? Our bodies are programmed to take in, process, and output real food because that's our nature. We are animals and we know what we need. And that's why when people tend to go on those fad diets like Whole30 and, different types of like paleo diets, things like that, where really, it's a diet, but all essentially it's trying to do is to get you back to whole foods. The reason why people feel such amazing results afterwards and they see a lot of great progress is as simple as that. They're getting back to real food again so that their body can go in its regular wavelength that it was designed to be in. So if we put in a lot of these harsh chemicals in our body, we're going to lose that intuition, which is so key to eating for a healthy lifestyle and mindful eating. Getting to the place where you can choose at your own terms what's best for you, how much, and being able to moderate the foods that you eat, it's essential. So staying away from artificial sweeteners because of that. Now, even from a more longer term perspective of why these are not the best products for you is because you might also notice that it's irritating your gut. This is something that definitely I think a lot of people have been experiencing, but they don't want to address it. So any type of gut distress, it could be gas, it could be bloating, it could be indigestion, it could be constipation, it could be long-term leaky gut. If you find that you're just very sensitive to certain types of foods, you have IBS, anything like that could be a symptom of you having too much of artificial types of sweeteners or highly processed ingredients. And that's not good, right? Because we don't feel good when we have constant gut distress, and it's going to affect your overall mental health as well. As we know, the gut is going to be like our second brain. So we need to nurture it and take care of it as much as possible. And then finally, some other detrimental effects of artificial sweeteners are the fact that they are going to perpetuate your likelihood of getting other types of diseases like cancer, and you're going to become more insulin resistant, which means that your body is not going to be able to use that hormone to flush out and to regulate your blood sugar, which is so important. That could lead to diabetes. And then overall, like when you're not able to manage and regulate your insulin properly, that is the key. And that is why so many people are struggling out there to lose weight and to keep weight off. So all big things to keep in mind here, guys. It's really not worth it to have this constantly in your diet. So listen up if this is you. Let's go back to our last term here. So how to sweeten with a little bit more savvy. So now we know these are not the right choice for us, right? More specifically, sucralose and aspartame, stay away from those as much as possible. Take a look at your diet Cokes, your diet juices, your diet, anything that's diet, flip it over, read it. It probably has one of these in there. And I would highly encourage you to then choose and opt for a healthier alternative. So first and foremost, I'm going to recommend to you a healthier alternative is anything that comes from lovely Mother Nature. So your fruits, your sweet potatoes, your squash, these are all things that give us such great natural sweeteners. So whether you're just craving something sweet or whether you're baking, if you guys have checked out my e-cookbooks, Sweet and Savvy, you'll know that I put all of these into practice. I like to use a lot of natural sweetness from fruits, from squashes, from sweet potatoes to sweeten the things that I eat and things that I bake, because it really does go a long way and your body receives it as that sweetener, and it's happy. Your body and your tummy will be happy. So you can always go with those. And I think that the more that you incorporate those types of foods in your diet regularly, you're going to then naturally pull yourself away from those cravings of those like mega sweet artificial sweeteners that maybe you're already using. Next, if you're going to be baking or cooking, usually those types of recipes are going to call for added sugar that aren't coming from directly fruits or vegetables. So in that case, your best option would be a really high quality raw honey, or like Manuka honey that's delicious. It's really good for you. It has all sorts of benefits, including antimicrobial, to keep bacteria away. You can also use maple syrup. It's definitely a little bit more on the sweeter side, but still very natural. And one of my favorites is coconut nectar, because it is low glycemic. And coconut nectar can come in like a syrupy form, but it also comes in a granulated sugar form as well. And those are super helpful because when you eat it, you're not going to get that huge sugar spike. It's going to slowly digest in your system, but you're still going to get that delicious sweetness in case you're baking or you want to put it in something to sweeten it up a little bit. And again, always in smaller quantities when you're adding in sugar on your own. And be aware of that also when you buy packaged foods, right? Because I'm not saying all packaged foods are the enemy either. You just need to be able to do your research, flip over the label, read it out, and find how they sweetened it. So if it has something like honey, maple syrup, or coconut nectar only, you're definitely in good hands. So keep on with that. And then finally, I would say on the artificial sweetener spectrum, there's definitely a few alternatives that are definitely far more healthier than something like a Splenda or an Equal sweet and low type of thing. And those are going to be monk fruit and stevia. These are both two that I definitely support. Why? Because they are derived from plants. So it totally changes the game, guys, in terms of what your body receives it as, how your body translates it. It's far more natural. You don't need a whole lot. They do tend to give that a little extra sweetness, but it's not to nearly the degree as some of these other chemically processed sweeteners. So I definitely recommend that you check those out. And they come in different forms as well. You can get like a monk fruit powdered sugar. You can get a monk fruit granulated sugar. Awesome for baking. You guys have heard me talk about that. And then stevia these days comes in a lot of different types of products as well. One of my favorite yogurts that I eat, the coconut yogurt, Coco Yo by GTS, the same brand that does kombucha. They put a little bit of stevia extract into their yogurts to add a little bit of sweetness, and it's amazing, and you definitely will taste a difference. You don't get hit over the head with that fake sugar. You get just enough sweetness to kind of keep your palate happy, but also, you're going to be in good hands in terms of staying away from some of those negative effects that we talked about. So just as a recap for everybody who joined here, and this is what we talked about today. We talked about not being fake, right? We are what we eat. Don't be fake with your sugars. You wouldn't be fake in real life, right? So choose the real deal here. And I think even in this picture, those green packets are stevia packets. So we're good to go. We got some stevia there. We got some honey. We talked about why artificial sweeteners are not actually freebies. Although it says 0 on the nutrition label, it carries so much more of a burden onto your body and your long-term health that it's simply not worth it. You don't want to be caught into that black hole of getting used to using artificial sweeteners all the time. You want to optimize your health for the long term by keeping your insulin healthily regulated. You want to make sure that you are naturally using sugar throughout your diet in a way that is supporting eating mostly a whole foods based diet, eating lots of fruits and veggies, high fiber foods, and then occasionally when needed, you can choose a more naturally derived sweetener such as honey, coconut nectar, monk fruit, or a little bit of stevia when you do need that added sugar. And those are all ways that you can sweeten with a little bit more savvy. So I hope this was helpful to everybody. Thank you for everyone who joined. I really appreciate you guys all being here today. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. And if you have any sugar cravings today, make sure you make the wise decision. Skip the artificial sweeteners, choose the real stuff, and you're going to be on your way. Love all of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'll catch you next time. Bye.